Hello. Okay, so let's have a look. Oh, I don't know if it's going to let me share this. Okay, so on a Tuesday now, I'm going to do Tuesday quick questions. So say hi if you're there, so I can see who's there. And every Tuesday, I'm going to pop on and pick a couple of questions that people ask me and answer them for you. So I'm also going to start, as of next week, streaming this live on Instagram. So I'm going to also pin my Instagram page link to the top. So hi Nicola. Hi Stacey. So if you, let's have a look, see if you'll let me do this. So if you are on Insta also, come and join me over there too, because I'll be doing bits and bobs over there. So if anyone has any questions, hi Denise, about anything at all, I don't know, stress, anxiety, overthinking, whatever you like. I'm gonna, let's have a look. I am going to answer some questions. I'm just going to share this onto another page where I've said I would do this Q&A. Oh, I don't know if it's going to let me actually. It's a bit annoying. How are we all? Hi, Jackie Jones. How are you, my dear? So if anyone has any questions, feel free to just pop them in the comments. Share to Facebook on a page. Is it on here? Yay, there it is. Quick Q and A. So I'm going to share that now. Oh, good question, Stacey. So why every time I have a drink or a few, you're down for about a week after? That, my dear, is very, very familiar to me. So I will answer that for you. Okay. I actually worked in a female prison for a while, and I was part of a team who put together a programme on alcohol, because alcohol was a fairly big issue for women in style prison. And so I learned a few bits and bobs about alcohol. Now, it's interesting because, say, for example, if me and my husband both went out on a day out together, we could drink the same amount. In fact, I could probably drink more than him because I'm taller, bigger than him. So actually I could probably drink more. But the next day, I would be absolutely shocking with a hangover. I'd be absolutely terrible, and I would really, really struggle, and I would really overthink it and beat myself up. And this would happen for about a week. Now, what actually happens when we drink alcohol and alcohol goes into our system, I mean, we all know it's a depressant, don't we? I mean, we just know that. That's pretty common knowledge, that it's a depressant. So it is a depressant that is affecting the chemical balance of your brain, okay? But as anything, all in moderation, okay? It's not too much of a problem. So what alcohol also does is it suppresses your nervous system. So for some people who feel like, well, alcohol takes the edge off a little bit, so, you know, as soon as they've had that glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine, they then start to feel a little bit more relaxed. Well, it's impairing our thinking. So we're not overthinking as much necessarily when we're under the influence of alcohol, or we're not thinking in the same way anyway. And it's suppressing our nervous system. But the only thing with suppressing our nervous system is that it at some point becomes unsuppressed, because we can't just continually drink forevermore, because it would kill us. So what happens when our nervous system is no longer suppressed is that the natural way of our body then producing that adrenaline, it feels like it almost spikes. So what would happen with me, and I can really relate to you, Stacey, and this is kind of the reason why I choose for the most part not to drink very much anymore and put it down to getting a bit older, but I just don't like feeling crap for a week afterwards. And so I have to just make that choice that, you know, I'm not going to say every time I make that choice I do still drink, but it's only if, you know, it really feels worth it for me. Because once that adrenaline then kicks back in, a lot of the physical symptoms of alcohol poisoning leaving your body, or poison, but alcohol is poison. So when it's leaving your body, there can be a lot of the similar symptoms that we can also experience if we're anxious. So your heart rate will speed up. Your heart has to work faster in order to get rid of the alcohol out of your system. And for someone like me that had experienced severe anxiety, as soon as I felt any of those symptoms, it would escalate to me feeling anxious because they would feel familiar. I would start to recognize them as familiar, and I'd go straight to that place of overthinking. Oh no, I'm anxious. This is terrible. What have I done? Why have I done this? Why have I done this to myself? I'm going to get worse. It's going to get awful. And the overthinking would spiral. So that's why me and my husband would both experience a hangover completely different, because he'd just go, I'm hungover, I've got a bit of a sore head, and yeah, my body feels a bit out of sorts because it's processing alcohol, and they think no more of it. Whereas I will go, oh no, it's making me anxious, it's doing this, it's doing that, and it would be like anything else, because any form of anxiety comes from us overthinking and anxious thinking. And so some of the symptoms of alcohol going through my bloodstream and leaving my bloodstream, and my nervous system being suppressed and then bouncing back up again, for me was a whole host of things for me to overthink, hence why it would last then for days. And that spike of adrenaline coming back up with your nervous system suppressed could take about sometimes up to 3 days. So sometimes that's why it gets to midweek and you're still feeling it. So my advice to you would be, again, all in moderation. Easier said than done sometimes, I know. But actually, if you are going to go out and drink and you've got an occasion and you want to go out and drink, well, if you're going to do that, do it and decide not to beat yourself up, and just know that for the few days afterwards, it's the alcohol coming out of your body and it's really natural what's happening, and try not to overthink it. You know, once you're in it, and it will pass, it always does, but don't beat yourself up for it, or choose not to do it. So I hope that answers your question. I know it sounds a bit matter of fact, but that's exactly how it works. Hey, I'm new to watching you, my friend told me watch you. Oh, welcome, Elizabeth. Oh, someone else new to watching, Michaela, hello. So thank you for those that are telling their friends and stuff, and I really appreciate anybody that, if finds any of it useful, to give it a share. So the more people we can get on here, the more of a variety of questions we get asked. And the plan is for me every Tuesday to hop online, to share it on this main page, because on a Monday I do a video in my private coaching club. On a Thursday, I also do a coaching club. So I'm a bit limited throughout the week. So I've decided on a Tuesday, I'm going to hop on and answer a couple of questions. Thank you. It really has. Okay, great, Stacey. That's good. So, have you ever read a book called The Chimp Paradox? I have, yes. It was recommended to me by my doctor. Well, that's good. It's nice that they're recommending books to read. It's thought-provoking. Yes, it is. And you know, for those of you that are new to my page or to any videos, I am a trained therapist, and I'm also someone who suffered severely with anxiety in the past. And I still get anxious sometimes, but it doesn't bother me anymore. It's not a big thing for me. I was really anxious about getting anxious for a long time. And even though I'm a trained psychotherapist, and I've also done some training in hypnotherapy, NLP, what else, CBT, DBT, like you name it, I've done it. But then I came across the 3 principles, which is what I talk about on this page, and all my coaching is based on, because it really is about understanding how human nature works, realizing that underneath all of that noise in our head, all of that stressful thinking, we are actually okay. We just don't always see it. And I tried for many, many years to fix myself, and realizing much further down the line that what I was doing is trying to fix myself, but in the process making myself more anxious, because I was trying too bloody hard and beating myself up and getting myself in a vicious cycle. So that is what I now do to help other people. Let's have a look. Okay, so I've already answered a question about alcohol. Has anybody got any other questions that they want me to answer? Because I said I would definitely come on and answer a couple of questions. I've also pinned a link to my Instagram, because from next week I'm going to start to stream live on there as well. So if you are on Instagram, come over and say hi there. There's not as many of us over there, but I'm sure we will grow over time. I've just not really given it much love and attention because I'm not very good at using it. But I suppose the only way I'll learn is to give it a go. So yeah, has anyone got any other questions at all that they want to ask me? Anything at all? No question too big or small? That's a bit cheesy, isn't it? I know some of you will come over from the mental health support page that's run by Melanie, who I've said I'll start to share some bits and bobs on there and help her with the admin. So welcome if you've come from over there. Let's have a look, see if we get any more questions. If not, I'll just give a little example to share with you of something that might help, and then see if we get some more questions the next time. If you don't have a question, feel free to say hi so I can see that's there, or do a little like or a love heart so I can see. Hi, Christine. Okay, so there's no specific question. So what I'll do is I'll just share something with you that I shared yesterday on my page, Coaching Healthy Minds with Sari Taylor. And it just kind of explains a bit about what I work with, what I explain to people, and what I help people with, which is what creates the change. And, you know, oh, let's have a look. There's a question here. I'll have a look. I'll have a look at this in a second. And someone else that's new, lots of newbies. Hello, hello. You know, don't just take my word for it. Like, it helps me massively, but it also helps lots of other people. You should be able to see on my page from the reviews of people that some people have not done any paid coaching or anything like that with me. I've literally just watched videos and had a massive, been able to have a massive change in their life. So you can do it. Let's have a look. I'm out of the house 14 hours, traveling plus 12-hour shift, work 8 hours as a lone worker, NHS complex care patient. How can I make the most of my days off? Keep thinking on my day off, I've got work tomorrow. Okay. So even the words, I'll answer this question for you, Denise, even the words, how can I make the most of my days off, to me instantly puts pressure on you, that those days off have to be something, okay? And as soon as we put pressure on ourselves, that's when we start to then overanalyze, am I doing enough? What should I be doing? I'm not making the most of these. And then the whole layers of thoughts then goes like, I've got work the next day. Now, if you think about anything we experience minute to minute in our day, minute to minute, hour to hour, we are experiencing through our thoughts constantly. So if you're sat there thinking about the fact that you've got work the next day, you may as well be sat at work, because the feelings you're going to start to have are as though you're at work. So it's like your day off becomes null and void, because actually your thoughts are creating feelings as though you're actually at work. So let me just give you a little example that I was going to talk about a minute ago, where I was with someone the other day, and we were by the window, and an ambulance drove past with its sirens going and its lights flashing. I just saw it, thought really nothing of it, and just carried on doing what I was doing. Whereas the other person was looking at the window going, oh, look, there's an ambulance. Come and have a look. Let's see what's going on. There's an ambulance. So I was like, that's okay, there's an ambulance. Like, it's nothing to do with us. It's not for us. Like, we know that. We're all okay here. So, like, it doesn't matter. And so my experience of that ambulance was very neutral. Like, let me sound horrible, but it didn't feel anything for me, because I didn't associate it with me through my thoughts. Whereas the other person then started to say, oh, I hate seeing, and I've heard this a lot of times with other people, I hate seeing ambulances. It just automatically makes me feel scared. I don't like it. It makes me worried. It makes me think, oh, it's awful. Someone's really hurt. And so they actually started to experience feelings of fear in just seeing an ambulance. And this is how phobias work. In just seeing an ambulance that was absolutely nothing to do with them. They actually had feelings of fear. And that's because our thoughts create our feelings. So we don't even have to be involved, but we can take ourselves as though we are involved through our thinking. And so my thoughts were not creating anything, because interestingly, when I explored this a little bit and thought about it, that person's experience of fear with an ambulance that was nothing to do with them was created through their thoughts of someone being ill. It's really scary. It's not nice. Whereas I actually feel quite relieved when I see an ambulance, because my thoughts about an ambulance are somebody's getting the help that they need. Somebody is soon going to be helped and rescued from their pain or whatever that is. And as silly as this might sound, also, if the lights are going and the sirens are going, there's a lot of hope there that this person with help is going to survive. So I see it as a positive. Yet someone else can have totally different thoughts about that ambulance and have totally different feelings. So that's just one example of many, many where we can experience, well, we do experience our life through our thoughts. And we make up stories about how we are and what defines us, and then we start to live by them. So, for example, the lady that said, how can I make my the most of my days off, keep thinking on my day off I've got work tomorrow, it's just become a habit. You've had thoughts when you've been off about the fact that you've got work the next day, and it's become a habit that that's what you do when you're off. But it's a habit that you can easily change. The more you understand and the more you learn about thoughts. So there's other videos on my page, previous ones, have a look. On my YouTube account as well, there's stuff there. Just keep learning about this stuff, because you'll start to see that thoughts don't really mean anything until we give them energy, and until we get frustrated by them and we try and resist them, and until we decide that they're real. Yeah? And often it's about, so say a thought comes in, I've got work tomorrow, and with that will come a slightly uncomfortable feeling of, oh, you know, or whatever that is, oh, I can't be bothered, I wish I didn't. And then we can let that go. Whereas if we then start layering on that, it keeps it around for longer. So the thought comes, oh, I've got work tomorrow, oh, it's a bit uncomfortable. Anyway, carry on with what you're doing. Your thoughts will pass, because that's what they do very naturally. That's how we work as human beings. But then what you're potentially doing is, and I'm just making this up because I don't know, but here's an example, that you then might start going, why do we always do this when I'm off? Why do we always think about work the next day? It's spoiling the day for me. Why do I do that? I need to stop doing it. It makes it worse. What's the point? Blah, blah, blah. So the layering and the layering and the layering of thoughts is what's then intensifying that feeling, where you may as well be at work because you've put yourself in it through your thinking, if that makes sense. So I hope that helps a little bit. Okay, so there's lots of questions here, all actually around the same thing. It's kind of saying, how do we stop thinking terrible things? Okay, so I'm just going to leave you with this, and I will talk about this more on the next call on Tuesday. This is the type of stuff that I go into lots of detail in my coaching groups, but I'm just going to touch upon it here. We can't stop having horrible thoughts. We can't control our thoughts. They just blooming come out the blue for whatever reason when we least expect them. So any parents out there may be able to relate that as a parent, at some point in your life, you will lie in your bed at night, have this horrendous random thought, like, what would happen if something happened to my child? That's not a nice thought. We don't want that thought, but it's cropped up. There's not much we can do about it. And it's uncomfortable. But once we realise that there's not much we can do about having the thoughts, and that we all have them as part of being human beings, and we have a choice as to whether we then try and explore that, and even exploring why you've had that thought in the first place is holding on to it. So we all have irrational, horrible, uncomfortable thoughts, and they will always pass, and they pass quite quickly, surprisingly, unless we hold on to them. So it's more about us learning, and the way that we do this is just exploring how thought works. It's as simple as that. There's nothing for us to actually do. It's almost like the opposite of that. There's nothing for us to actually do. We need to just leave them well alone, but we get so caught up in the habit of not leaving them alone and trying to work them out and figure out why you're having them and beat ourselves up for them and talk to everyone we know about them, and you know, it's like we're holding on to them for dear life, that horrible thought that we had, and then the next day we'll go, oh, do you remember yesterday when I had that awful thought? Yeah, what was that about? And bring it back into the next day and the next day, and it's habitual. Is there a difference between clinical depression and general depression? It's different for everybody. Don't try not to get bogged down with diagnosis and conditions and all of that. I believe, in my experience of working with people with lots of different things, is that every single one of us can have a better experience of life the more we understand about how human nature works. So whether we've experienced depression, anxiety, or whatever, everybody's susceptible to these things, every single one of us. We're not born like this. It's developed over time of conditioned beliefs and conditioned thoughts and habitual thoughts that there's something wrong with us. So anybody can benefit from learning this stuff. And if there's any parents watching with their children, I have it all the time, you know, my child's autistic, my child's got ADHD, will this help them? Yes. Anything that can help us explore more about how human nature works, how thoughts are not truths. Thoughts are just thoughts that come and that they pass, and that we don't need to hold on to them. But yet when we are holding on to them, we are creating suffering for ourselves. Just like when we compare ourselves to other people and we worry about what other people think, we're creating unnecessary suffering for ourselves. So again, very quickly, for example, somebody worrying about what someone else might think of them. We have no control of what others think of us. Quite frankly, none of our business what other people think of us. They're allowed to think whatever they want about us. Well, we can't help that. Like, it's nothing to do with us. And yet if we try and spend all our time trying to figure out what they think of us and what that means, and what a waste of time and suffering, and comparing yourself to others or what they might think, because one day someone might like you and the next they might not. But there's nothing we can do about that. We don't have to. Like, we don't have to give them that importance. So as I say, there's other videos on my page. If you are over on Instagram, I've pinned the link to my Instagram page above in the comments as well, because I'm going to start streaming live on there from next week as well. And I will pop back on next Tuesday. I'll share bits and bobs in the meantime, but I will pop back on Tuesday to answer some more questions. But thank you very much for joining me, and I will hopefully see you all again soon.